Welcome to God with George Ortega. This is episode number 86. I'm recording it on Sunday, February 21st already, 2021 at 3:50 p.m. Eastern Time. And so we're going to talk about God as usual. And I thought Andy would join me on this, but I'm going to record this, and then hopefully maybe Andy and I will record a second episode later this evening. So, all right, God. Yeah, I mean, it's surreal that that religion, well, monotheistic religion, is all about God. You know, I mean, this idea, this understanding that there's a being that is all powerful, all knowing, eternal, everywhere, and yet, you know, in our lives, often feels distant from us. You know, so this is really a great part of this show to kind of explore the possibility that simply conversing about God, as I'm doing with myself right now, I'm just, or talking with you, in the audience, but, simply talking about God. It doesn't really matter what it is about God, as long as it's about God, can bring one closer to God. And so, all right, so why would we want to become closer to God? Well, I mean, let's first explore what it means to be close to God. I think to be close to God firstly means to be virtuous, to understand the Torah, the Bible, Scripture has been given to us by God as a way of teaching us to be better people, more virtuous, to better distinguish and discern right from wrong. But that's not, that's interestingly, that's just the tool of God, the tool God gives us, through religion, through education, through whatever means. But the real gift is what this knowledge of God, this knowledge of right and wrong provides, which is happiness. But I'm gonna zoom right to the point of happiness. There are so many different ways to be happy. One can be happy counting pebbles all of one's life. People could probably do that. Probably get completely blissed out counting pebbles. I mean, some Buddhist has probably already done this. But the idea behind happiness is there are different ways, so many different ways to access God's greatest gift, God's only gift, really, of happiness, because happiness just manifests in all these different ways. But what I'm getting at is that there are different ways to be happy, and some are more, quote unquote, virtuous than others. Some bring us closer to God than others. So what I would propose is that the highest form of happiness is love. This is original. I mean, somebody else may have said this before, but God seems to have given it to me directly through a thought. I don't remember when, but a while back. But it wasn't a thought that just came out of thin air. It was based on Aristotle's considering happiness, which he called eudaimonia. It's a different kind of happiness, but it applies to happiness also as the greatest good. All right, so Aristotle describes happiness as the greatest good. What is goodness? John Locke, British philosopher, describes goodness as that which creates happiness. Makes a lot of sense. If you want to be good to someone, you really want to be boosting that person's happiness, making that person happier. All right, so we've got happiness is the highest good, goodness as the, and happiness, incidentally, another Aristotle quote, is the only end in life. Everything else is a means. Everything we do every day is a means to happiness. And again, since this show and series is about God, it seems the wisest path to happiness, the wisest means is by acknowledging God's existence, appreciating God's existence, communicating with God, being close to God, getting closer to God. All right, so happiness is the highest good. Love, I believe, is the highest happiness. Why? Because a happiness that's shared, that involves another person or other people, has to be much more valuable, closer to God than a happiness that's not shared, that's just experienced, individually. And God grants that that gift. Some Buddhist monks, again, it's not as common in the Jewish tradition and probably not in Christianity, except they had these monks. Yeah, these monks, they probably experimented with seclusion and all. But yeah, the idea is that happiness that comes through other people is probably brings us closest to God, and it's probably the wisest form of happiness, the wisest way to be happy. So, all right. So again, understanding God, acknowledging God, getting close to God is ultimately about feeling happier, and ultimately about feeling happier in a way that's shared with other people. So when you think about religion, that's what it's about. It's about understanding God in order to be happier with other people. And it really is that simple. So all right, let's now that we know why we're seeking God, let us talk some more about it. It's not easy to talk about God. God's all over the Bible. You actually open any, a lot of pages of the Bible, and there's a lot to talk about. And I may resort to that. Like after 86 episodes, I may be running out of material, and I may have to just pull out a book, one of the 5 books of Moses or something, and just recite and react and respond, and that might be fun. All right, but it's important to try to find God in our everyday lives. Perfect example. It's about almost 4 o'clock on Sunday. I want to call my brother. Hopefully we can talk for a while. But I also want to head out, take a walk. I think I want to go to the Westchester. It's pretty easy to keep socially distanced there because it's a big place. There aren't all that many people there, and it's warm. So, I probably takes me about half an hour, walk kind of slowly to walk all 4 floors. If you include the Savor Cafe up on the top level. So that is how God is intending. This is the plan. God could change God's mind, her mind, anytime she wishes, because she does that a lot. But God has me believing right now that that's what I'm going to do as soon as I finish this episode, which has about 18 minutes to go. And I will seek God. I will, it's interesting. God comes a lot of times through connection, through recognition of each other. We see God in each other. There's a kind of an irony here in the United States and in the New York metropolitan area that's been influenced to a great deal by Anglo-Saxon philosophy, culture. There isn't all that much greeting of each other that goes on. There may be eye contact, not much more. And then contrast this with, I don't know if you ever, this is a movie, goes back several decades, Crocodile Dundee, this guy from Australia, from the outback, from, where like he could walk miles and not see a person. So like, there's a scene of him walking through Manhattan, attempting to greet every person he meets, because that's his custom. That's what you can do in Australia, in the outback. And so, but that's, that is actually how we do find God in others, even just for that instant. We have this recognition, eyes meet for a moment, and it's kind of like connecting with God, which, and then there's the movement and the mall, the Westchester Mall is a beautiful place. It's kind of like, you could see it like a museum, the storefronts, the art, the interior design, the window decorations. I mean, absolutely beautiful, a lot of talent there. So yeah, so God has me, planning to, and like now God just like had me, this is so cool, because this is how God worked. God just planted a thought in my mind. All right, fine. So like, I'm going to go there. What am I going to do on the way there? And God just planted this thought in my mind, because that's what he does, she does all the time for all of us, that I would listen to some music on the way there. And it sounds good to me. I've been playing a lot of classic progressive rock, jamming with a bass guitar, which brings me closer to God. I don't know how, I can't explain it, maybe it has something to do with mathematics. I have no idea, but like, playing music, jamming to classic rock, Pink Floyd, yes, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Traffic. I mean, that's amazing stuff. So yeah, so I yeah, I may listen to that same, it's a Spotify playlist that, have just collections of songs. Actually, but, God really has been leading me to want to do a lot of jazz. Why? Because, I think jazz is a lot more creative, a lot more artistic. A lot of rock, classic rock is awesome. But jazz can be a lot more relaxed, whereas like a lot of rock is just like intense. So I don't know, I got to think. So anyway, so that's what I'm going to do later, find God in the place, in the walking, and hopefully, my brother will call. I'm going to call him as soon as I get out, or as soon as I, finish with this. Maybe he and I will talk on the way there. So, but I think what I'm trying to say is that whatever we do, we're seeking God in a way. We're seeking a connection, a feeling of purpose, a meaning, something that we get something out of. And that something is, can be described as connection with God. Because we could be doing one thing one day, let's say jamming to Crosby, Stills and Nash, Wooden Ships, amazing song. We could be doing that one day and it feels like the right thing to do. It feels like it's getting us really closer to God, and that feels so good. And then another day, perhaps in another week, you think to play that song, you start playing that song, and all of a sudden you realize, no, it's not the right thing to do right now, for whatever reason. So like the idea is that that God seems to bring us to her in different ways at different times. And now, all right, that's about playing bass guitar to rock music. If we pray every day, 3 times a day, then I think that's a much surer way to connect with God. And studying Torah also. Speaking of Torah, I was Orthodox Jewish in the mid-'80s for several years. And I basically focused on Musar, ethics of the fathers, the Pirkei Avot, the works on how to be good and how to be wise, how to enjoy life, really, what virtue means to a happy life. And I ran across a series of, oh, this is cool, I actually may listen to this. instead of the music on the way to the mall. Um, there was a series called to 48 Ways to Wisdom by Rabbi Noah Weinberg. Okay, and I think it came out in the 70s or 80s. And I had about half of the 48 lessons, and it's lessons he gives at Aish HaTorah, this yeshiva, I believe, in Israel. The guy, I think, is from Brooklyn, strong Brooklyn accent, but so he gives these lectures. And so what I just discovered actually earlier today, because I was thinking I could get maybe a CD set or MP3 download on Amazon or something, but it turns out you go to a page and they're all there for free. MP3s just download anytime. So I'm listening. I think what I'm going to listen to is, I think, his lesson number 8, which is about joy, because some of them that he talks about, I'm not all that interested in, but some are really good. And I have to say about this guy, Noah Weinbach. No, maybe it's Weinberg. I don't know. Anyway, he is like the best rabbinic teacher, lecturer I have ever heard. The guy, he connects, he talks in like they talk in Brooklyn. It's very down to earth. He doesn't try to intellectualize when it's not necessary. He's very down to earth. He's very real, and it comes across in what he says. So anyway, that's, it's funny because like we try to maintain our focus on God, and it's like meditation. You try to meditate on anything, your mind just goes to so many other things, and you have to keep pulling it back to your focus. And this is actually one of the purposes of this series. That the idea is, again, I'm on 86 episodes, maybe on 192, I will be twice as close to God. I mean, I could be, it's hard to know, but this seems to be training in maintaining one's attention on God. My intent, and I guess yours, watching me, whatever, listening, you're sharing in that intent is to talk about God, to focus on God, to make the topic of my mind God. And like that's kind of difficult. So like I settle for whatever God happens to want me to talk about that particular day. Today, I'm kind of like pleased. I feel that I'm communicating relatively well. The ideas that I'm presenting are relatively interesting. So, but sometimes God will just have me come out here and stumble over my words, and the ideas aren't coming. I go into an idea, and then God just like, she's got to have a sense of humor, because I'm in the middle of an idea. All of a sudden, I lose the end of the idea. And that's not, I didn't lose it. Obviously, God, who gave me the idea, decided, oh, let's have some fun with this guy just trying to search his way back to what he was talking about. Whatever. I mean, sometimes that happens if you follow complicated lines of reasoning, trains of thought, but it, you got to laugh at it, because like, because like when you understand, this is important, when you understand that it's God doing that, it takes on a surreal, humorous quality. When we ascribe this, oh my God, I'm losing my memory, I just like it's, I can't believe I can't remember, we place it on ourselves. That doesn't feel that good, and so it's it's not that we don't work on ourselves to be as intelligent as we can, to be as happy as we can, to have our memories be as strong as they can be, to do what we can well. But when we fall short of our aspirations, it's helpful to understand that it's God, that both, we so get that God grants us the gifts by which we achieve, that these blessings that we have quote unquote earned. Yeah, we've done the work, but God has enabled us to do the work. There are a lot of people who couldn't do the same work we're doing, same mitzvahs. So just as we credit God for the good we do, and God gratefully, fortunately, rewards us usually, God will often, for reasons that will continue to evade me, and that's why maybe in episode 300 we'll find an answer to this, because it's not yet. It's like God just I mean, no, we can't find an answer now. Like basically, apparently, this life is about developing ourselves as people. So God is going to push us, regardless of what level we're on. God is going to push us to a higher level, and that's going to amount to just meeting some kind of resistance, just falling somewhat outside of our comfort zone. Now, having said that, God does give us wisdom. So God has given us the wisdom through the Torah and through other philosophies, through various religions, how to not reach too far, how to stay relatively within one's comfort zone. I think the Buddhists may refer to it as equanimity, shalom, peace, just like, yes, we're progressing, but we're not, we're waiting on God. We're waiting on God to lead us. We're not saying, well, I need to be here, at a certain time on a certain day, and I got to rush to get there and all. I mean, sometimes we have to do that, but in general, this development, this understanding that our life is about development. Again, developing greater character to be happier in a more virtuous way that leads to a happier world, including other animals, which is very important. And actually, I want to talk about that right now, because we've got about a little over 5 minutes left. I feel a little guilty right now, because there was, I attended a Zoom meeting earlier where a prospective assistant rabbi was being interviewed by the congregation, and I took part in that, and I could have asked that person how he understands that while our Jewish kosher laws are very humane in how we slaughter animals, how these animals are raised before they get to slaughter is very inhumane, especially now. And so I should have, asked his reaction on that. The reason why I didn't, well, obviously it's because God didn't want me to, but it seemed like, for whatever reason, it wasn't the right thing. I ended up asking he's not a rabbi yet. I think he's going to be a rabbi soon. I asked him, because he was once Orthodox. I asked him, so what explains the transition from Orthodox to conservative Judaism? And, gave an answer. But again, in hindsight, I should have asked the animal question in order to advocate for animals in the process of determining what this prospective assistant rabbi was about. His view on that would have told me a lot about him. So this is a perfect example. Let's say mentioning the animals was a more virtuous act, and I chose the less virtuous act, because this doesn't seem like a matter of right and wrong. It seems like both questions were right, but one perhaps was more right than the other. So, all right, God did it again. He's like, I'm following the chain. She did it again. I'm trying to refer to God as she, because to balance things out. But anyway, so all right, so yeah, had I, if I had a free will, think about this, because this is the great part of the show, to understand that everything is God's will. In other words, I talked about the rabbi's transition to conservative Judaism because God made me. Yeah, I mean, but, God also now is making me acknowledge actually, that since I didn't, that it was wrong, that I should have talked about the animals. And so this is kind of like a feeling of, I wouldn't call it guilt, because it's not, I'm not going to feel guilty for something that I didn't will, that God willed for me. But I do understand that to reap God's greatest blessings, to not be punished, it's wise to get things right. So, I guess what I'll do in this case is try to think about it. Why, if I know now or if it seems now that talking about animal welfare would have been more virtuous than talking about transitioning from Orthodox to conservative Judaism, why didn't I do that then? And obviously that the answer is that, well, I didn't have the free will to, because like, if I had a free will, think about it, and this applies to everyone, all of you. You value virtue, you value happiness. If you had a free will, you'd be completely virtuous. You'd be completely happy because there's nothing that would stop you. Free will means that you're free to think whatever thoughts you want, whatever feelings. People will say, well, no, that's not what free will means. But when you say that, you're also saying that, well, you really don't have a free will, because if free will doesn't mean that, what are you free to choose? Or how important are your choices, perhaps? But I mean, like, no, the argument against free will goes so much beyond that. All right, I've got a minute left, and I'm glad because I want to get out. The sun's going down, whatever, but that's all right. So I hope you're having a great day. Catch this every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock on White Plains Community Media, channel 76. If you get Optimum, 45, you get Verizon. And I've been good about getting all the episodes up on YouTube, and I put a few on Facebook. So, and then, it's important to, I'm doing this for you, partly, but I'm also doing this to a great extent for myself as an experiment. Let's say God has me do 400 of these episodes. How will those episodes be different from these? It's kind of interesting. And it seems like a good thing to do. There could be more virtuous things that I could be doing now. And if I had the free will to know them, I would do them. But apparently, this is what God wants me to do. All right, thanks for watching. And God willing, I will see you again soon.